4, 3, 2, rewind.
Rise of the Fallen, MMO Quest, Pantheon. Once again, time to pledge. Very excited. We're here to talk. Let's get this party to
share your thoughts.
Co-host Derek.
Weekly Adventures, co-host Desiree. We're almost professional.
Full disclosure.
Dangerous combination. Creating content and optimizations. I've got a lore video coming. Cannot wait, which is all about Grovefinder and some sort of like cake. Mail on a Sunday.
News and notes.
Schedule for this week.
Hot cocoa. All these people.
Supports the show. Adventuring party.
You ready? Let's go.
Let me take a deep breath.
Hello, brave adventurers, and welcome to episode 135 of the Pantheon Plus Rewind, our weekly podcast that covers the development and community of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This week, as you'd expect, we're talking about the January newsletter, shining a brief community spotlight, and ending with some community-sourced fan fiction. Buckle up, kids. We're going for a speed run this week. Hold on to your shorts as me, Desiree, and my speedy co-host, Theric, drive you to the finish line in this week's Rewind. Yeah, as I indicate, we're kind of blasting through this one, so maybe for once, our listeners can expect a slightly faster rewind. Maybe get to their lunch a little faster.
Well, it's ironic because you say speedy, but I was actually late getting here to record because traffic was a nightmare on the way home.
Yeah.
Because people forget how to drive when it gets below a certain temperature here. So
even in Canada,
I wasn't speedy.
That's crazy.
Even in Canada, doesn't matter. I live in Alaska and in the Arctic Circle. It would still be people would drive their sleds horribly.
The mushing. They're like mushing all over the place with the dogs going wild, and it would just be all a mess, big mess.
Yes, absolutely. But let's get to
it. Who's not a mess, Theric?
Ooh.
That's our adventuring party. So we've got Ziplocs on the Dark Mer Rogue, Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki-Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsosaurus on the Human Warrior, Churro-Dude on the Halfling Direlord, Fury Wrath on the Archive Summoner, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Acera Avienda on the Elf Ranger, Galarain Moonsong also on the Elf Ranger, and Annoying Llama on the Human Monk. We are in a rush, but I'm never going to skip us saying thanks for everyone that is on our adventuring party and supports the show and watches the show. You guys are pretty awesome, and if you would like to jump onto this bandwagon, join the adventuring party, you can check out our Patreon that we always, link down below. Or if you'd like to be on the scrolling banner that goes across the video of the show, you can leave a super chat during the premiere or a super thanks in the comments if you aren't able to make the premiere. But yeah, I'm not going to skip this. So
no. You can't skip this part. It's mandatory.
That's
Gratitude.
Right. That's right. But maybe we should definitely blaze into this next section because it's gonna be hard to go fast through the meat of the show, right? So we're not gonna.
You got to chew your meat.
Yeah, we got to chew our meat. So let's start chewing.
This week in Visionary Realms news and notes. All right. So it is newsletter week. And as always, newsletter week brings us lots of information to go through. That newsletter dropped a couple days ago on Thursday, January 26th. And let's go through it. Now, we always start with usually the calendar, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit this time. And we're going to start with the roadmap because I feel like that's the centerpiece of the newsletter every week or every month, I should say. So we're going to look at the items on the roadmap that are updated and have more information. Now, the first things that are actually marked as updated, the update's a little, you have to squint a little bit to see the update, perhaps. The first one is classes in combat, and they said that it's been updated with ongoing balance passes and ability kit adjustments for the currently available classes, which is exactly what it said
like the last several months, right? Yeah. But
yeah,
I mean, it is ongoing.
ongoing.
Yeah, ongoing as in they're probably going to be doing this, until launch.
So they probably get a freebie on this item on the roadmap
on this one
every month, right? Yeah. Same thing for the network overhaul, although it's a little bit more substantial. It's the same key points talking about post vinyl functionality and all that. And so the items are the same, but Des, you notice there is one important difference.
Slight difference is that last month they said they are beginning work on the seamless zoning. And they have completed it now. So That is at least different. But the last three, the NPC pathfinding across zones, local weather profiles, and dynamic entity spawning systems, those are still kind of next. So we'll hopefully see those started maybe next month. I would hope. And also just kind of may as well wrap all this into one, but there was some stuff in the climbing improvements and the improved starting experience sections that were the same as last month as well, like literally the same text. It's just kind of something they might want to maybe switch up a little bit, or at least rephrase if there's kind of nothing new to report, because
right,
or take away the updated thing, because it's like we're still going.
I know. Well, I know, like, that's what I'm saying. It leads to a little bit of a confusion. It's like, well, is it updated, or did you just forget to update it? Like, it's not exactly clear. So yeah, maybe just a little clarification there is needed. But on a brighter note, there are some categories here that are very substantial in their updates. The first one being crafting and gathering. So this is a big one. They said implemented support for group members to cooperatively gather from a node.
Dude.
I know you love group gathering.
I mean, we're gonna start with the V word right off the bat. Vanguard, man, it was such a nostalgic thing to go group harvesting with the guild in Vanguard. So I am just ecstatic that this is kind of something that just took us from left field, right? It's really exciting. Nefel kind of did tease it a little bit on Twitter for anyone that follows him. Yep. He kind of was like, hey, so what do you guys think of group gathering? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you should definitely be following every single dev for VR individually on Twitter. Because,
admittedly, like, don't expect, a bunch of stuff, but every once in a while.
Side note here, but I love JN's tweets because they're always very cryptic and very, like, mysterious in their nature. Not like Nefel. I mean, he says, what he's talking about, but with JN, it's very like, this is something you might be thinking about. It's like, it's kind of interesting.
Or it might just be something completely unrelated. That's
could be.
I have to like kind of throw that in there because people get a little crazy on developers' personal, social media stuff. So I always want to encourage people to realize that they're people, so
there's Desrin reining us in, telling us to keep our heads in check. The next part on the roadmap that was in this category, it says implemented dedicated combat processor events for gathering. I don't even know where to start.
What a weird way to phrase that, right? Like, so I'm super curious to know what exactly they're trying to say here. Because like, is it interacting with a node uses the combat system? Like, so like not
it's gotta be something like that.
Yeah, just not. I realized like we should probably try to, pick this apart a little bit for the audience, right? So not meaning like you're fighting the node, I don't think, but more just that if you think about all of the core things that a combat system can do, it sounds like they will have those options with the node harvesting system. So, and that opens up a lot of possibilities, right? Like, you could think of just about anything.
Well, it sounds right. And it again reminds me of previous games. Remember we talked about EverQuest 2 and the crafting systems. I mean, when you would critically fail and you would take damage from a critical failure, right?
I'll admit that is exactly what I thought of as well. And
it's like you're fighting the node, you're in combat because it can do the same things to you that mobs can do,
Maybe.
But I'm not sure that you can have critical failures when you're harvesting in Pantheon. That's not what I'm saying, but maybe. I mean, that
could you imagine like dispositions on
yourself
nodes?
In the head. It's an extra porous piece of tin. I don't know.
Okay, we're getting a little crazy. That wasn't necessarily said, but just keep an eye on this one. It might develop into something interesting.
Agreed. The next one is implemented dedicated equipment slots for gathering tools and support for auto swapping between weapons and tools based on combat/gathering states. I just want to say this is excellent. This is excellent because, and it seems like such an obvious thing, but like to me, this should be a no-brainer. Right?
Well, so I didn't want to make a big deal of this, but I'm going to make a big deal of this because I know there's still a lot of folks out there that are for some reason, huge advocates of having to unequip your weapon to equip a tool. Maybe
Oh my
because
gosh.
they're permanently attached to another game from many years ago. But this is one of those like little quality of life things that is just super obvious to me, and I'm really glad they got to it so soon.
I can't even begin to relate to somebody who thinks that like it's like really helpful. It's a good game experience to have to open your inventory. Not immersion. If I have like my tool belt on and I've got a sword in one side and a hammer on the other, I just grab one, like it just automatic. Like I don't have to take the hammer out to put the sword away and then put the hammer in. Like it's ridiculous. Like who does that? Anyway, next point. Began development of categorized pages in the ability codex to support navigation between combat and gathering abilities. To be honest, it's just good to hear the word ability codex once. We haven't heard that in a while, right?
And I don't want to. I don't expect this to be like a whole bunch of UI work, but they're probably needing some functionality that, because it sounds like they're pushing into crafting and gathering a little bit. But again, like we're kind of getting teased with this whole gathering abilities thing, and I'm just really curious what Nefel has in mind for this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But kind of hoping this Parting the Veil, I know we haven't got to the calendar yet, but this Parting the Veil live that's coming up, I am really hoping that they get Nefel on there. No offense to Joppa.
That would be amazing.
I mean, we're kind of diving into some crafting and gathering. It'd be nice to know what their thoughts are on it, the goals, and it's perfect, right? I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's just been a long time since we've heard from Nefel at all, and or seen him on a dev stream, and it would be great to get an update on this because this is definitely his baby. So basically, it was summarized by VR in the newsletter as this, and I'm going to quote: "Says our gathering system has been receiving some long-awaited attention, bringing things closer to a planned alpha state while we prepare to reopen Avendir's Pass for exploration." So interesting that they sort of lump those things together there. So gathering in some form is, it's now a part of the roadmap to alpha. Things kind of come onto the roadmap to alpha, and then they kind of sometimes
I'm going to correct this. I'm going to correct this. So they said bringing things closer to a planned alpha state, as in, I believe what they're expressing here is the gathering to an alpha state.
So not saying it's going to be, not saying gathering in its more complete form is going to be a part of alpha, saying that
exactly
gathering as a system will be in a state worthy of alpha.
Yeah, exactly. However, I mean, if we had to wager a guess, I mean, I am pretty sure we're going to have some form of gathering in the alpha. Yeah. Like, come on.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean, of course, if they're going to talk about it in this newsletter, I think that we should definitely be expecting that. The other thing that is curious about that quote is, opening Avendir's Pass again.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be so great to see what that looks like now, because we haven't seen Avendir's Pass since the HDRP conversion, really. They've talked about new points of interest in Avendir's Pass, anything else there that, sort of triggers your imagination there, Des?
Well, yeah, I think to the fly-through video, which wasn't the HDRP, I can't remember if it was part 2. I think it was after that, though. It was like additional footage that wasn't thrown fast. And I expect a few things as we kind of jump back in there. I don't know when they're going to open Avendir's Pass again, but I would expect, just like Thronefast, because they've expressed that Thronefast is so much larger now, just because the mountains are no longer a barrier, since we're not zoned. And so all of that is gameplay area now. And I expect the same thing from Avendir's Pass, which does open up, right, like you said, new points of interest are, I would say, all but guaranteed. I do wonder, because Halnir's Cave is in Avendir's Pass.
It's right.
Does that mean there's going to be that progression back into Halnir Cave again? Not to mention, Hangor as well, that we've seen, and perhaps see a tidbit of, or a sign of, in the little featured sneak peek screenshot. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see some gathering progression too. just because, it's technically a more dangerous area. I'm also, kind of lumping in some stuff from one of the later parts of the newsletter, but it seems like there's supposed to be some progression of harvestables in a way. But
yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice to see those things implemented at the same, in the same sort of not expansion, but next phase of development, right? Where we can go into this new area and start to really dig into some of the new systems that are in place in that new environment.
Because a lot of cracks will start to show, when you start going, instead of, level 1 to, let's say, 10 to like level 1 to 20 plus, right? The game is going to have all sorts of different, sides to it when you get that level of progression, because that's a decent chunk of the game, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, if it's a level 50 cap, I mean, you're getting close to half, right? So the sort of summary quote, they said, gathering ability loadouts are being developed as well, which will service both crafting and adventuring spears. So this is sort of what we were talking about with, using the ability loadouts at all would be a nice addition. If those existed in the game, would be a great addition. Although, it's not something, really, it's not something without gathering being a part of this. Ability loadouts isn't something you need until later levels because you just don't have that competition for space.
Well, that also kind of leads into, skills. If they're working on it, I shouldn't completely correlate this, but if they're working on it, you'd assume that they expect people to use it. And level 1 to 20, I'm thinking, we'll probably have more skills than can fit on a bar at that point. Yeah, this isn't another great game that is currently having a free weekend that you don't even fill up your bar. But anyway,
level 16 and I've got room to spare.
Exactly. But I kind of expect it to be a little bit different so that we can utilize ability loadouts, but also ability loadouts for gathering. Like, they just keep teasing these abilities.
It just gives you a reasonable expectation as to how big the gathering and crafting system is going to be. At least gathering. I mean, it's if it needs a loadout, ability loadout of its own, it tells you that it's going to be quite
it's its own gameplay sphere, to use a familiar term.
Yeah, and to go back to what you said earlier, again, I love the group-centric theme of it, right? So you have a group and one person's got their extra ore loadout on, one person has their extra wood loadout on. Sort of
who knows what they'll do? Like that's why this is so crazy to me, is that we have 3 teases in the newsletter so far about gathering abilities. We don't know anything about them, literally nothing. Yeah. So that's why I'm crossing my fingers for Nefel this month, to maybe to part the veil a bit, so to speak. I don't know. I'm not going to be like super disappointed if he's not on there, but I'll be a little disappointed just because this is too much teasing to leave us hanging.
I'll be more disappointed now than I was 5 minutes ago since we started talking about this.
Sorry.
You've got me hyped up for it now. So let's move on to talk about the zones that were updated. They said several updates to the art and layout of the giant ruins in Wild's End. We've seen the giant ruins before.
A little bit, yeah.
So it's not, but we haven't seen it in a while. Looking forward to seeing what they're working on there. Right?
Yeah, it is very interesting that they're doing some work in Wild's End again after... they even said that they're setting it aside to focus on Thronefast and Avendyr's Pass. And then recently mentioned, they're kind of sound like they're treating Silent Plains as the next thing on the agenda. So I don't know. It's just a little curious. I wonder if this, again, we're getting off track a little bit, but I kind of wonder if maybe they got someone new on the team and maybe tasked them with some Wild's End touch up as kind of part of, onboarding and some to get them familiarized and that players wouldn't necessarily see right away.
That's a possibility. I to me, I think that sometimes it's a matter of let people work on what they feel like working on at that time. Like if somebody says, I had a really good idea for Galdazi Ruins,
right?
When you're inspired, they sort of let people go with that, is my guess, is another possibility for how this sometimes goes. Because I think that's actually smart. If somebody's feeling it, you want them to you want them to put their heart and soul into it. So you can maybe say, yeah, go work on Galdassi Ruins for a while, and we'll touch base later.
I mean, I don't know. Production team might have something else to say about that. But
I mean, that's like speaking from a non-managerial standpoint. It's probably not the best managerial strategy.
Maybe it would work, but yeah. And again, that is complete speculation, by the way. Like, I don't have any like indication or inside info that they got someone new. It's just total guess. But.
Right. But they did say that Silent Plains was going to be their focus.
They did. So
the point is well taken.
You got to wonder.
Yeah. So a bunch of new points here. And I want to remind or refer people back to the screenshot that attached the newsletter this month, because, if you're looking at that screenshot, you can sort of see a lot of what they're going to say here. So here's all the points that were further on the roadmap with regard to zone updates. They said the first pass of the snow biome in Avendir's Pass has been completed. Finalization of point of interest development in Avendir's Pass to support upcoming testing objectives with a specific focus. This was mentioned last time in the newsletter, but these specific items are now listed, and they are Hangor, various ice structures, snow and ice covered rocks, icicles, a large ice formation, the addition of an orc seer dwelling type, Mad Run, an update to dungeon layout, replaced Greybox art, completion of all ground cover floor for Thronefast biome and surrounding areas, began work on the Elkhorn tree with variants for Thronefast biome and surrounding areas, and lastly implemented new assets to form the entrance to Avelia in Thronefast. So that's a lot of stuff, and I really love this screenshot. I usually like some of these newsletter screenshots are kind of like we've seen it before, but this is very new. Like, I look at the texturing on the rocks with the green grass or the moss texture, I guess. And then it looks like the lake sort of going into the snow covered area, and the snow on the background mountain there is really nice. I really, really like that shot. What about you? What do you have for that?
Well, I'm actually a little on the fence here.
Really?
Yeah. The cliffs kind of, they feel too much like the same cliffs with a bit of decoration.
Really?
Yeah, I know it's a first pass, so I don't want to be like super critical or anything, like, but to me it's I'd have to see more of it, I think, to really make a judgment call. But to me, it doesn't seem to really like flow naturally. I like, it looks like mossy cliffs right next to snow, which I don't know. I think I just need to wait until they're a little further along before I'm really excited.
I'm curious as to what about the mossy cliffs next to snow. Is it like like that wouldn't actually happen in nature? Or is it like
not
a
usually
aesthetic thing?
Not like that, because that's kind of the dark green moss that would be like in a moist, like humid area, I guess. And usually you're more just kind of cold and it doesn't survive. And this is, in real world, so it's kind of whatever. But to me, it's just a little jarring. And especially because we're talking about the transitions between places, like,
yeah, I thought that this perfectly showed that. I think because we talked about that last week, transitioning from one area to the next. And I think the screenshot does a really nice job of showing that.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just maybe they'll have another screenshot next month where they've worked on it a little bit more, or that it shows a little bit more that makes it flow better to me. But right now, yeah, I'm not quite as super hyped
Fair
about
enough.
it.
You're entitled to that opinion, however wrong it may be.
Hey, well,
I'm just kidding. The next one is talking about player models. And this is the piece that was updated. It's actually some of the same text on the actual roadmap, but the intro in the producer's letter gives us a little more detail, I should say. It says, quote, "Our revised human and Darkmer models are serving as a test bed to develop our hair solution and new armor sets inspired by our racial concept art and built within our revised armor fitting pipeline, which are nearing completion." So let's break this into two pieces. The first part, the hair solution. I mean, I just like the phrase hair solution being in the newsletter. Maybe maybe this was Ronick when he wrote this part because it's his hair product. Remember Magic Move? Remember on the stream when he talked about his glorious hair product.
Oh, poor Ronick and his magic move, man. Oh,
Magic move.
but yeah, this is something that probably could use a little bit more clarity. You know, like if I had to interpret, it kind of sounds like they're maybe not wanting to get the new human and Darkmer playable until, you know, last few bits are finished up, and one of those bits is the system that allows for hair, or other bits which they've teased, right? Darkmer, maybe not.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? Maybe it means again, just to get on the other side of things after I've had a bit of, I guess, semi-negativity. But you know, maybe this means that when the models are in, we have some bit of customization, or you know, just maybe a few different hairstyles and stuff like that, which seems super minor, but I mean, it would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The second part of that quote that we should talk about is the quote that says, "New armor sets inspired by our racial concept art built within our revised armor fitting pipeline." So just to note, last month's roadmap said they completed various armor sets, and this month it says they're continuing to work on new armor sets utilizing revised armor fitting guidelines compatible with new character models. So, you know, when it says that they were inspired by the racial concept art, it made me go and look at the website, right? Look at the official website, look at the races page. And I put in our notes here, you know, the Arkai concept art and the elf concept art, just because, you know, you're an Arkai and I'm an elf.
Yeah,
so I figured we could look at things that we might be eventually wearing one day. But if you look at like the Arkai's, you know, armor there, it's very minimalistic. It's very loose and flowy. And the ranger, or the elf armor is much more, you know, traditional leathers, and at least the Ember elf is, which is sort of where I would be going with this. So I guess, you know, they're looking at these concept art pieces, saying, you know, we need to be doing armor sets and making armor sets that are in line with these. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting, you know, when they pointed out that, and gives us a point of reference to go and look at to see what they're up to. And then in terms of, it wasn't on the roadmap for some reason, but I feel like it does fit into this category here, so I'm going to highlight it. In the introduction, they said, quote, "Visual development efforts continue with additional building styles coming online in the village of Avelia." So, you know, we talked about before on other shows, the new, you know, the modular housing system that they have, so they can use one thing and just sort of, you know, plop it around and do different things with it. It reminds me of Vanguard. We've already mentioned Vanguard once. Let's talk about it again. Remember the 3 distinct housing styles based on the continent, or the culture, I guess, maybe is a better way of saying it. There was the Thestrin style, the Kojani style, whatever.
And that is kind of what it broke down to a little bit. The armor also did Thestrin, Kojani, and Kalian as well.
That's right. Kalian, I couldn't remember the third one. Thank you.
That's the one I always think of, because like a lot of the houses in Galia look very similar. But right. I think this setup though is a lot more modular than that. Mm-hmm. Because literally, like in Vanguard, they just like copy pasted like whole structures, right? This isn't whole structures. This is parts of a structure that can be assembled quickly to make a unique structure within the same style that it's intended. So a little bit different, and I think it'll not be as samey. But I also like that it's per culture, or like location even, instead of like just a continent. Because if we if we just had, you know, one style for each continent, that would be
right. You don't want that.
Right. So I mean, we're not even down to one per race either. Like this is what Avelia looks like, and potentially, you know, other stuff that's supposed to be like Avelia, but it's not even all human things. So I think we're fine.
Right. And then maybe we're reading too much into it, or maybe I'm reading too much into it when they said it's coming online. PA testing, does that mean it's going to be in the testing? Probably not.
I don't know, man. I don't know if that phrase was kind of meant to mean anything. We'll see. We'll see soon enough. We will see.
Yeah. If you're going to say coming online in a MMORPG development arena, you better, you know, it's going to come with some expectations, but perhaps not. In the animations department, here's what was updated. They said they've completed additional animations and polish for shield combat states and blocking, and initiated animation revisions for two-handed blades and death.
Isn't that just a funny sentence? Like two-handed blades and death.
And death. It makes it sound like the death caused by a two-handed blade.
It's just, I laughed at that too when I read through it. I'm like, okay, you just put those two things together. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty funny. We really needed more death animation, apparently. Like it's death is going to be so prevalent that they need to really get that death animation down and nail it, because it'll get ridiculed if it's not right.
Yeah, just splatting on your face, it could be better. It could be better.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I'm fine. I'm fine with a high-end death animation. I mean, if you just sort of melt into a puddle, or maybe you explode, I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe not. No. Not high fantasy, not high fantasy. So let's move on and look at the calendar for February that was released alongside the newsletter. We'll look at the content menu that's for the month to come. So coming up on February 2nd, it's the VIP only Bring Out Your Devs, and we are talking this month to JN Gerhardt, their lead writer. So a lore stream, that'll be a good one. February 9th is the next developer live stream, which is a roundup of the new developments in the art department. So we should see lots of interesting pieces, maybe from Jared, which we're going to see. Actually, we're going to talk about in a minute as part of the newsletter. Maybe more, maybe from some of the new artists as well. As you referred to, Des, Parting the Veil is on February 16th this month. It says the team talks design document level systems and features, which is interesting.
Just
so
totally
maybe not
generic.
About gathering.
I mean, that's literally
it's
just
generic.
Describing the show. Like that is what the show is. It's just design doc level talks. That's literally all it is every single time. So there's nothing specific about this, which leaves it wide open for anything, I think.
Yeah. Although the screenshot attached to the calendar, it's a fellow sitting in front of a fireplace, maybe looking at some sort of cooking, maybe some sort of kiln.
It did kind of remind me of the stove or melting thing that we saw in Fortress de Vair.
Yes, it looks very much like that. It does. You're right. I like the armor on the guy too. Look at the helmet. There's
you had to bring it up. Okay. All right.
I did.
So
I did.
Here I go
just
again.
Noticed it now. I didn't even see it before. Gosh. What do you got? What do you got?
If you look at kind of how the armor fits the character with the pose that they're in, it totally stretches, and it makes me a little bit because I kind of thought that a lot of the new model and skinning and everything, it was supposed to help armor sit a little bit more naturally, and not do that. So, yeah,
I don't see it. I really don't see it, to be honest with you. I don't I can see on the back is a little bit misshapen, perhaps.
Yeah. Other
than that, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, but it's just my eye. You have a much more finely tuned eye for this kind of thing. Perhaps.
You might not even, I won't care too much in game, but it is one of those things where it's like, we were just talking about that. So it's just weird that they would feature a screenshot where it, in my opinion, is kind of obvious. I feel so bad. I love the artist for Pantheon, and it just, I notice things, I guess. And it doesn't bother me that much, but I can't help since you said it looks so good.
But I mean, the engraving on the helmet looks pretty cool.
Yeah, the textures and everything, I'm a fan of, and I think it looks natural in that side. It's just
Yeah, I hear you. You're that's man. Perception. That's a thing. Your perception is very high level, so I'm not going to discount that. Let's talk about the feature piece in the newsletter. It gave us a really good look at some new concept art, and interestingly enough, the first time ever, we saw how they're envisioning that big area of Kingsreach to the west of Thronefast and to the east of Fairthal, known as the Rones. Dude. We've never seen this before. I'm super excited, right? And to dig into the notes on this artwork, there's so much of it as well. And some of the other pieces are very much worthy of a closer look. Now, for the sake of time and the show, we'd be here for another 2 hours if we went into every single piece. I just want to focus on the ones showing the Rones here, because there's a couple themes that I noticed and a couple interesting pieces. And I don't know how closely you've looked at these, Des, but the Azure Glaze, well, like we were just talking about your perception. I'm assuming you've seen this. It appears to be like this Azure Glaze appears to be some sort of like a mineral resource. It looks like, and they said it's abundant in the mountains at lower altitudes. It also says harvesting it yields a living cobalt derived from cosmic microbes hailing from the heavens. It's funny when I read these notes. Do you not hear Jared's voice?
Absolutely.
In your head?
That's part of why it's so fun.
Yeah, and furthermore, it says it's a rich source of mana that can be woven into fabric, making garments as mystic and enduring as the runes themselves. So another good example of nice resources being available in difficult climates where your acclamation is going to come into effect. So I like that. Also, cosmic microbes. I mean, yikes! Better bring a cleric.
It made me think of The Expanse.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't watch it long enough.
It's so funny. Yeah.
I wonder if JN had some influence because I know he's a fan of The Expanse, right? Like he's talked about that. Maybe. Interesting. The next one, the similar thing is that a plant called the celestial flame briar. It says it's a rare botanical at the highest peaks, and it's also another source of gatherable materials. It says, quote, briarwood, when still infused with its celestial mana, rich in dwelling. I think that might be a spelling mistake on the thing. Anyway, it says marvelous resurrective, I don't think that's a word, and restorative powers. But it's, what's cool to note about this as well is that it's impossible to harvest the timber without losing the blessings that it carries unless clerical blessing and cleansing is undertaken first. This is all from the notes.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, again, bring a healer because if you want to harvest this resource, you got to do some prep work, it sounds like. I love this stuff, man.
Tying
I love
in
this
with
stuff.
the combat system, maybe there's something there.
Yes. Maybe the celestial flamebriar like attacks you or something. I don't know. But it also talks about a narrow mountain pass leading up to the Rones. And there's like a lore connection there because if you read the lore, he talks about the White Gate and there being a narrow path leading to this elven outpost in the lore. So just nice to see all these world expanding details. And I always dig Jared's insane attention to detail on these ones,
Dude.
right? Like just so detail oriented.
Yeah, I would. Okay, I'm gonna gush a little bit here. Just afford me this. I know we're trying to be fast, but I kind of can't help but dote a bit on how much love and care goes into these reference concept pieces. Like, you only mentioned the cool looking rocks and crazy celestial flame bush, but
flame bush.
It's literally a burning bush. You can't change my mind.
It is.
But the truth is, literally everything in these pieces, like not just the exotic noteworthy things, has a description, has meaning, and has purpose attached to it. There's just nothing done carelessly here. And Jared's kind of insane passion just infiltrates his work so much. It fills me with wonder and just a desire to be in the world that exists, in Jared and Jayan's
so
mind.
Much.
Right. And not to mention, all the suggestions of gameplay use for the different plants and stuff. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, like I go back to those videos when they did the giant ruins. It's funny because we mentioned that earlier. That's when we last heard from Jared, I think, and he was talking about all the little notations about the giant ruins.
Yeah.
And I'd love if they did their next dev stream, another thing similar to that where they sort of like go through these concept art pieces.
And that's kind of one thing is the concept art's a tough thing because this kind of concept art is incredible. I love it, right? But I'm really glad later on in the newsletter they kind of mentioned that we're going to be seeing more raw gameplay, like footage, which I think is absolutely necessary because we can't just have concept art, right? Even if it's really good.
Right.
But yeah, even though I know this is just concept art, it means something. It's this perfect example of what sets Pantheon apart. That kind of loving craft of a world with purpose and meaning in every detail. I mean, you could literally put together a botanist's guide with everything in just the concept pieces that are in the newsletter. like I actually wrote all of the ones that I just quickly caught down. There's 24 unique pieces of flora, not counting the variants of the that they kind of noted in there. And they each have like, their own little like blurb and all this detail. And it's like where other studios would just kind of like stop at that, hey, make a cool looking flower. And then just kind of throw, just throw it wherever it looks good, right?
Yep.
Like VR,
Yep.
they tie each piece to the world, like in a tangible way. Like a lot of the plants, naming or like kind of aesthetic kind of matches something with the lore or the area. Dude, it's it's like there's my bit of fanboying for the week, but this is the stuff that like means a lot to me because again, it's concept art. I know, but not everyone does concept art this way. And I just hope that it translates to in-game in some capacity.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I love it as much as you do. And it always makes me a little nervous that it never makes its way into the game. Like some of these are just, whimsy and whimsical dreamings that never get made their way into the game.
That's the fear. Yeah.
That's the fear, right? It's like, it sets your imagination so high and then, you worry about that, but we're optimists and we want to keep our minds open to this will make its way into the game, and that's why we love it so much. And I would say
when it does make its way into the game, please, content creation team, show us and then put it next to the concept art. Like just make a big deal about it. Like that means so much to the community and people that have been following for a long time. Just that it goes from this step to this step and matches to some degree, like that. I really want that.
I do too. Speaking of lore and writing, we got the Aradola lore that was we heard in the VR dev live stream from the past month. We got it in written form in the newsletter, which we were told we would. I was very much looking forward to this, and I'm going to pore over it and spend some time with it for sure. And we also got the community spotlight feature on Sir Medieval this month. So no surprise there. He's been making a lot of Pantheon content and one of the bigger content creators that has spent considerable effort on Pantheon content. So I was laughing when I was reading his piece because much like his video titles, he used every word he could in his answers. They are lengthy and long and informative, but you can't, that's the way to go. That's the way to do it. You only get one chance to do this, so make the most of it. But if you want to know more about his background and his interest in Pantheon, be sure to go and check that out. Right?
Unfortunately, like I had no time to read it, and it's so long. I'm guessing it was a great interview, but Jared kind of took up all my mental space there, so sorry. Love Sir Medieval. Love Sir Medieval. I'll read it eventually. Yeah.
I think that's how we do these newsletters. Usually there's one piece you've read in the week and one piece I haven't read, and then there's one piece I've read that you haven't read. We sort of go back and forth on that. So as long as one of us is reading it, that's all that matters. Yeah. Lastly, before we end the news here, I want to give a shout out to the winner of VR's pre-alpha access giveaway. That was the one they were doing through Gleam.io. So congratulations to Micah Shalom Kesselman, the winner of that sort of pre-alpha pass for this session that's starting this weekend.
Congrats.
Yeah. Excited. So hopefully they have a great experience in the test, and hopefully it's also not the last time they do this. It was really successful. So that's the VR news. Let's quickly look at the Pantheon Plus news for this week coming up, January 30th through to February 5th. The calendar is not extensive this week. We've got our usuals, and that's Monday night, Drac, and the Pantheon Plus After Dark crew playing still Dark Age of Camelot on the Eden server, playing their Hibernia tunes and having a lot of fun with that. I know that there's a lot of back and forth with the gameplay there, and a lot of people have actually gotten sucked into playing with them too. So if you're into that game, if you've had an inkling to play it, they're still going strong. So a good time to jump in if you're into it. That's midnight Eastern on our Twitch channel. Of course, Tuesday and Thursday, we've got our MMO 101 and 201 streams, 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday on Twitch, and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel. And I want to do a quick apology for the technical issues that we had with this week's 201 stream. It was so annoying. I was so excited for it because I beefed it up. There was all bells and whistles, and it was going to be fancy and fun. And it was 15 minutes of frustration. It was
fancy and fun. I totally get... Yeah, it happens. It happens. But I loved, I mean, I've said this a few times, I guess, but like, I loved the whole setup. Yeah. Like it's so aesthetic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it was just disappointment on my part because I knew like what it was supposed to look like, and it just didn't happen that way. But we still had fun. We still had a good time, and we were just talking in our group chat today about how much fun we had, and speaking about like our classes and the loot we got and what we want to do next time. Anyway, we're having a blast with it. 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday next week. Come hang out with us. And that is it for this week's news and notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, and to make it snappy here, again, a pretty light week for Pantheon content. It's surprisingly, but may as well. Let's start with something that happened kind of end of last week. But BazgrimTV on his live stream went over the Parting the Veil live, which, you know, the reason I put this here, because it's kind of like a reaction, right? But Baz adds so much context and extra stuff that like it really is worth watching. So that's you know.
Well, we criticize people for reacting all the time without a knowledge base to do so from. Baz is exactly the opposite. Exactly. He's reacting from a place of utter and complete knowledge when it comes to this game's development. And so it's worth a watch.
Totally. And then speaking of Sir Medieval, he had a video up called What's Next for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, MMORPG in 2023. One of his more, I guess, shortened titles. But I'm just kidding.
He was all exhausted from the community spotlight. He had nothing left to give.
But this is actually his recap of the January dev live stream. So, you know, it's been a few weeks, but if you want to get recapped again on all that, feel free to check out his video. And just as a kind of little tiny thing, but going forward, I think I'm going to kind of pass on content that just like mentions Pantheon, like you know, we had a lot this last week of like upcoming lists of MMORPGs and stuff like that. And I guess I just want to make sure that I'm bringing you guys stuff that has like a certain amount of value and effort, you know, into it. And not to disparage any creators that do those lists and stuff, but since it's always usually just like a quick mention of like the basics, nothing that really... you know, and sometimes it's not even right, you know, so like, I feel like, you know, if I'm going to put something in this section, it should at least be a significant chunk about Pantheon. So I'll try to do better with that in the future. And feel free to leave me feedback if you have ideas of how this section should go and what you want to see highlighted. If I highlight too much, too little, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this week's brief community spotlight.
And now, story time from our fans of fiction. All right, this week we are excited to bring you a new fan fiction story. This one is a little bit more akin to the signature character tales that we've seen from VR because it's written in the first person. It's called Tiryn Grovefinder, and it's authored by Fate, who you actually may have met this week when they debuted on the 201 show on Thursday night, playing Lotro with us. So we pick up the tale with Tiryn, and again, this is chapter 1. So Tiryn is a halfling, and following up on a tip that, tale, I guess she's heard, but ends up discovering something altogether unexpected from what they were looking for. So again, please enjoy part 1 of chapter 1 of Tiryn Grovefinder, an excellent piece of fan fiction by Fate. Tiryn Grovefinder by Fate. Chapter 1. Iron and Blood. There's going to be something good inside of here, I'm certain. Even if I don't find anything, this grove will make an exceptional hiding place for my own future acquisitions. I approach the tall and thick trees with my eyes wide. Evening is approaching, but here in my homeland of Wild's End, this is the perfect time to hunt for treasure. I found the grove earlier this morning while looking into a different matter about a cave and some wraiths that turned out to be a sore bear in a hollow. Serene and her tail's taller than an ogre. Well, at least I saw some new places, like this one which caught my eye when I ran by, with an angry bear trying to catch a halfling snack. Turns out grizzly bears aren't nearly as soft and fluffy as they look. They also don't like being prodded and kneaded while they're trying to sleep. Well, the bear had their fun, now I can have mine. Discovering a new hiding place is exactly what I needed to relieve the perpetual boredom. Bonus points if I can catch a rabbit or two so that Tiryn won't scold me for leaving again without saying anything. Again. Why does he care if I'm there or not anyway? I always get my work done, frequently on time as well. Old growth trees and a tangled mess of underbrush create an impassable wall of green and a tantalizing darkness beyond. I wanted to see inside before, now I need to see what lies beyond. I could climb a tree or cut through the brush, but that would leave obvious signs of my passage, something I never do. Instead, I need to find a natural opening in the brush, or one made by a previous patron of the grove. I meld into the long shadows of evening and begin my circuit, ears sharp and eyes open. Careful steps that leave no prints take me around the verdant wall. Waxy leaves and reaching branches block my way, but my luck holds out and I spot a small opening between two close-together trunks. My breath catches in my throat. I wanted to rush forward into the muggy darkness, but caution overrides my curiosity, and I spot scuffs on the bark of both trees. Many sets of footprints lead up to the opening. They're very fresh, less than an hour old. Most of them are indistinct, made by a light step, but two stand out. The marks are as faint as the rest, except for two sets of grooves made by protrusions from the sole. I recognize them as hooks meant for soft paths to sneak around inside cities and quiet hallways. All of the footprints are large, humans and elves for certain, possibly a dwarf as well. City folk, tree humpers, and a stone chewer? Sounds to me like the start of a lewd joke. As I'm contemplating how the joke would go, and whether I want to sneak into the very much occupied grove, I do, a slim elven woman slips out behind the trunks in a single graceful motion. I don't remember ever being envious of other women, but her practiced poise makes me feel all the more like the silversmith's daughter that I am. Our eyes meet at the same instant. Since I was distracted, I didn't have a chance to duck out of sight, but I also didn't expect her to pierce right through the darkness I've gathered around me. The elf stands up, looking just as surprised as me, but doing a better job of keeping a straight face. She also does not look happy, and places a hand on a long dagger. Oh, that dagger looks like a beautiful piece of work. Is that platinum worked into the hilt? And a silver pommel? I wonder if I can get her to show the whole thing to me without also getting stabbed in the process. Her outfit looks like one of a professional sneakabout. Her clothes are snug but comfortable, layered with thick leather pads tied down with metal rings, painted black to not catch the light. She wears long, soft boots with a sturdy but flexible sole. Those would be great for stealth in almost any environment. A hood hangs down her back and isn't attached to her clothing. It would break away if pulled on. And that is the lore you know, and that is the show. So, Des, I'm amazed. Look at the time here. 48 minutes. We are.
Oh man.
Look at the time. There's never time. But yeah, we're moving quick today, just like you said. You predicted at the beginning.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know if this is going to be the shortest one we've done, but it might be close. I hope it was
close.
Still good quality for everyone. I definitely don't want to dupe you guys just because I'm in a hurry. But
you know what? They're here for your sexy voice, and you could say anything. That would be all. That would be
back at you there.
I don't think so. So yeah, but no matter how fast or long or short the show was, it's another week off the calendar before we are all in Terminus. and we are one step closer. I've got a week off of work coming up in February, so I'm looking forward to. I know I haven't done a lore video in quite a while, and I'm sort of overdue for one. So I'm really looking forward to using that time to get a lore video done. Yeah, so thinking about that right now. So as always, thank you, Desrin, for your hard work and your companionship on the show here. I really, really appreciate it. And I want to say have a great week to everyone, and we will see you next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.